Welcome to today's presentation about managing iOS 9 and El Capitan upgrades, hosted by Jamf Software. My name is Nick Thompson, and I'll be taking you through today's agenda here. We're going to start off by doing a brief overview of the Casper Suite. And we want to do that just to make sure that everybody is on the same level of knowledge here. Some of you joining already use the Casper Suite, and we thank you for that, but there's others that don't currently use it, so we want to do a quick overview of it. Then we're going to talk about what's new in iOS 9 and 10.11 El Capitan, and specifically focusing on what's new for IT. Then we're going to look at how do you upgrade these operating systems. And we're going to focus on how to leverage the inventory data that you have to prepare, and then look at the strategies for upgrading both of these operating systems. And again, we'll do some Q&A at the end here. So let's talk about the Casper Suite. First off, we are Jamf Software, and we help organizations succeed with Apple. We started managing Macs back in 2002, really long before they were popular here in the enterprise. And our main product is the Casper Suite. The Casper Suite is a set of administrative tools to help you manage your Apple devices. At the heart of this suite is the JSS, or the Jamf Software Server. That's the management server component, and it includes a set of apps that run natively on the Mac. These apps are used for management by building packages, doing deployments, remote access, and imaging. It also includes apps for the end user, such as Casper Focus and Self-Service. All of these together make up the Casper Suite. The JSS, or again the Jamf Software Server, really just acts like a web server which communicates to your devices. The JSS can run on an OS X, Windows, or Linux server for on-premise deployments. And we also offer a service where we can host the JSS for you in the cloud. So it's all just web-based. The first step for device management is always enrollment. And the Casper Suite offers several methods for enrolling both Macs and iOS devices. For Macs, you can provision them by either imaging them or by running an app called Recon, and that's included with the suite. And that will scan your network for all available Macs ready for enrollment. For both Mac and iOS, you can actually allow your users to self-enroll via a private URL that the JSS generates for you. Or you can leverage Apple's device enrollment program, known as DEP, for really zero-touch configuration by automatically enrolling devices upon their first boot up. This is really the best way to manage devices moving forward here. You simply order Macs and iPads from Apple, ship them to your end user, they boot them up for the first time, and it automatically enrolls them. So now that our devices are enrolled in the Casper Suite, whenever you send commands to them, the JSS talks to Apple's Push Notification Server, or APNS for short. This APNS server maintains a constant connection to your Apple devices, so you don't have to. iPads communicate back to the JSS and receive commands, applications, and configuration profiles that you send to it. This is really Apple's architecture for mobile device management, known as MDM. And this can work on the Mac as well. However, in addition to using MDM to manage Macs, the Casper Suite also installs a binary within OS X. This is known as the Jamf agent. And it runs in the background as a launch daemon, and it communicates directly to the JSS. It also installs a hidden management account that has admin rights. Having both of these on your Mac really lets you execute command line tasks, including scripts and installing packages. The Casper Suite includes a number of these pre-built commands and scripts for common Mac management. We call these policies inside of the JSS. So there's really two ways to manage Macs, MDM and policies. Apple's operating systems have evolved a lot over the past 15 years, really from the birth of Mac OS X back in 2001 with 10.0 Cheetah. And iOS has brought a wonderful new litany of products that it runs on. It's also paved the way for annual releases that Apple's been doing. Apple is even introducing new operating systems to run on watches and on TVs with watchOS and tvOS. Really, the pace of innovation here since iOS 5 and Lion has been astonishing. And Jamf has been alongside Apple this entire way by releasing versions of the Casper Suite that supports Apple's new operating systems on the same day. So let's talk about one of those new operating systems, iOS 9. And what is new for IT? Well, when we talk about what's new, a lot of people like to focus on the configuration profiles that have been updated. And again, those config profiles is like a recipe for your device that you can send over there and tell it to turn on and off certain settings. And with iOS 9, Apple introduced a lot of new ones. I'm not going to go over all of them here today, but it's a good thing to know what's out there. Some really nice ones that they added. I really enjoy the fact that they allow you to disallow the modifying of a device name or modifying of the wallpaper. You can hide some of the new iOS 9 apps like the News app or disable things like the iCloud photo library. Makes it really, really handy. But one of the really underlining technologies that Apple also introduced with iOS 9 is this ability to install apps without the App Store being present on a device. So how does this all work? Well, you start off by distributing a configuration profile to these devices that disables the App Store. So if you notice on our iPad here, the App Store doesn't even exist. But what they can do is they can use self-service. And self-service is kind of like your internal app catalog that you as IT can populate with all of the approved apps that you want to have on there. So you can see in this scenario, we've got things like Box and Evernote and HipChat, all appropriate apps for work. The user simply selects the app that they want in self-service and taps that install button. And just as if they were downloading it from the App Store, it downloads to the device. Very easy, very simple, and very handy if you are really wanting to control these devices a bit more without having the App Store on them. Another really landmark feature of iOS 9 is the fact that you can now install apps without an Apple ID. Now, before I get into this, I want to mention that Apple IDs are really handy. And they support things like the iCloud services and purchasing apps and books on your own. But if you're in a scenario where you really need locked down control of these things and you just decide, you know what, we don't want Apple IDs on our devices, you can now do that and still deploy apps. So on the right here, we've got an iPad, and you notice that it's definitely not signed in to the iTunes Store or to the App Store. And on the left, we've got our JSS. And I've already gone through and purchased an app. In this case, we've purchased Slack. And I've said assign VPP content here. It's just one checkbox. I've then scoped it to the appropriate devices that I want to have. And as I click Save, Slack is then downloaded and installed on the iPad, all without any sort of user interaction and all without an Apple ID. Really, really great, again, for those that need far more control of this. And I'm going to show you a live demo of this in just a minute, but I wanted to just walk through the process for you here on the slides. Some new things that are new with iOS 9, well, you can do multitasking, which is great. The Calendar now supports Microsoft's new ActiveSync version 16, a lot more stable. There's some enhancements to per-app VPN. Coming soon, there's going to be the ability to block iOS updates or actually force them to go to a new version. That's something that hasn't been out there for in the past. There's ways to automatically trust in-house apps by bundling a certificate with it. And there's ways to take the apps that are currently on a user's device and turn them into managed apps, all without having them lose any sort of data. Now, when we talk about operating systems, this is kind of one that is also like an operating system, and this is their deployment programs. And it's really the guts that make all of this stuff work in enterprise scenarios. And so there's some changes happening to the deployment programs too. With DEP, that's their device enrollment program, there's a wait step that's being added that essentially allows you to load all of the profiles and apps on a device during the setup screen so that it gets it all in one download. VPP, again, we talked about device-based app assignments. And another enhancement to VPP is the fact that you can purchase and distribute apps and that are assigned to users and devices in any country where that app is available. So you buy it once, and then you can distribute it to multiple countries. Makes multinational support of apps far, far easier. So you don't have to have multiple instances of VPP running all the time. So let's now take a look at that device-based VPP on iOS 9. On the left here, I've got my JSS. And again, the JSS is all web-based, so I'm accessing it in Safari. And I'm going to go to my mobile devices tab. And I'm going to go to my apps. So all of these apps are populated in my self-service, and I have designated them to all be device-based assignment. Again, that's all under this VPP section right here. Now, ahead of time, I purchased all of these apps, all the free ones even, through the VPP site. So you have to buy these apps first through VPP. Then you can load them into your app catalog. On the right, I've got my iPad, and I'm using QuickTime to capture the screen here. And it is at the setup screen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to enroll this device using DEP, and it's going to grab a configuration profile that will automatically disable the, sorry, let me hide the password here. The config profile is going to disable the App Store, and we're going to then download self-service onto the device automatically. And we'll get some apps on there. Here we go. So DEP has grabbed this, and I'm automatically skipping some setup steps here. Specifically, you'll notice I never even saw the Apple ID screen. So here we are now on our iPad, and it's asking for my passcode requirement here, and this is part of the profile that I built. So I'm going to set an extremely secure password. And it will take just a minute or two here for self-service to come on down. And so while that happens, I'm going to show you what I did to set this up. So with self-service, again, that's our app that comes with the Casper Suite, but I had to buy it through VPP first. And after I bought it through VPP, I said, make sure that it is assigned to all devices. See if this is kicking in here yet. I'll prove to you that it is not on an Apple ID at all. We are connected to Wi-Fi. Sometimes it takes just a second for it to talk to Apple servers. Let's take a look at it in inventory. We're using this one. And we can see the command is pending. So it may take just a minute or two here for that to go through. While we're waiting for that, I'm also going to scope it a new app too. So I want to get Slack on here. And to do that, I've already purchased Slack from the VPP store. So I've got codes already. But I need to add it to my app catalog. So I'll say Slack. Add it. And my distribution method for Slack is I'm going to say install automatically. And this is another new feature that's available in the newest version of Casper Suite, is to automatically update the app too. I'm going to just select that. I'm going to choose device assignments. You'll notice I have 100 codes of Slack and none are currently in use. And I'm going to scope this just to that one device that we were using here, which is this one. And as I hit save, there we go. Slack should come on over. And look at that, self-service has just come down. So that app was installed all wirelessly without the need for an Apple ID. And Slack should be coming momentarily here. In fact, I'll jump into self-service. Here we go. So you'll notice that there is no App Store on this iPad, but I'm going to install Box right from self-service. So coming soon here, there should be Box and Slack coming down. Of course, we're always dependent on Wi-Fi and always dependent on the Apple push notification service. Sometimes it just takes a minute or two. Let's jump into that device, and we should be able to see that it's got some pending. Yeah. Well, looks like there's some issue with the push server right now. That's Apple's push notification server. So we at least got self-service come down. Oh, look at that. There we go. There's Box. There's Slack. And I'll prove to you that this is actually an app that got downloaded. So there you go. It's live. Pretty cool. So moving forward here, El Capitan just was released earlier last month. And let's talk about what's new for IT with that. There again are some new restrictions that are available out there. And there's not as many as iOS 9, but there certainly are some that are important. And some of those new profiles include the ability to restrict the App Store to only apps that you choose to scope to it, restricting some iCloud data, disabling the camera on a Mac, which is handy, and disabling some of the new features like what's new in Spotlight. One big underlying technology that's new with El Capitan, though, is something called System Integrity Protection, or SIP, or it was known as rootless for a while too. And what that means is Apple has decided to disallow access to certain folders, and it even disallows root level access to these folders. And those are the system folder, user, the bin, and SBin folders. And Apple decided to do this in the name of security. And what that means for you as IT is if you decide to package up any apps and deploy them to systems running El Capitan, you need to make sure that you don't reference these folders at all. Now, in fact, the Jamf binary that I mentioned earlier, the Jamf agent, had to be moved out of one of these folders into one that is now appropriate. And so if you have any scripts that you're currently running, and if those scripts call these folders, you'll have to update them to make sure that everything works. If you have any questions on that, make sure you reach out to our support teams for help with that. But this is overall a good step that Apple is making and really will provide some more security in the future. There is a way to disable system integrity protection, and it has to do with booting the Mac up into recovery mode, essentially, and then disabling it via the command line. Not something that we'd recommend, but you certainly can disable it if you really, really want to. Some other new improvements for El Capitan from a user's perspective. Spotlight's been enhanced a lot. Notes is far better than it was previously, and Mail has some really nice enhancements to it as well too. Another MDM command that's coming to El Capitan is the ability to also do updates. So to tell it to grab the software updates or to block ones as well too. Again, not all these features with the forcing the updates and blocking them are supported yet by the Casper Suite, but they will be happening sometime in the near future. There's some updates to the deployment programs on the Mac side as well. The three on the right we've already talked about for iOS with the that kind of wait step for enrollment optimization, device-based VPP or device-based app assignments, and the multinational support for VPP. One feature that will be coming soon, which is the ability to have the Mac create just a standard user account during the DEP setup. This isn't supported yet, but it will be sometime in the near future. Currently, you can only get an admin account when you do a DEP setup of a Mac. Soon, you'll be also able to get a standard user too. So let's talk about now doing this upgrade process. How do you leverage your inventory data ahead of time? Well, you want to start off by checking some of the system requirements that are out there for the new version of El Capitan. And this is pulling right from Apple's website, and kind of take note of the appropriate amount of memory and storage space that's required here. And in the JSS, we're going to leverage something called smart groups to accomplish what we want to get, and that is show me all the Macs that are eligible for an upgrade. And so a smart group is a set of criteria that you define, and it constantly searches for that criteria. Boolean logic can also be added to make some really advanced searches, and you can be notified of any changes to this inventory. So for example, on the right here in the JSS, we've created a smart group that is searching for all Macs that have more than 2 gigs of RAM, that have enough hard drive space, and that's running one of the new operating systems. We're also referencing an existing group. So this is kind of nice. You can actually tier these groups. So if you save a smart group, you can reference it in another smart group search. So you can get this kind of layered inventory approach. So now that we know all of the Macs that are eligible for an upgrade, let's talk about these strategies for upgrading. First, with iOS 9, the strategy for upgrading to iOS 9 is, unfortunately, you just have to let users get iOS 9 because you can't block iOS updates yet. If you're on 8 and you want to go to 9, there's no way to block that. There will be ways to block going from 9 to 10 in the future, and those features will be added to the Casper Suite down the road as we get closer to supporting those. But know that going from 8 to 9, you can't really control, but going from 9 to 10, there will be some tools in place for that down the road. If you haven't upgraded to 9 yet, make sure you install a caching server on your network. It's going to save you some bandwidth. Have the newest version of the Casper Suite, and really just sit back and watch your network for iOS 9. With El Capitan, though, you've got a lot more control. So you can ask yourself up front, do you want to do this upgrade? And if the answer is no, we're not ready yet for El Capitan, maybe you've got some internal systems or apps that just won't work on there, you can create a policy inside of the JSS to block the newest version of El Capitan. In fact, you can block any upgrade on Mac. If you decide yes, you do want El Capitan, then you need to ask yourself, do you want to keep your data intact? From there, you're going to say, either I want to keep the data or I want to erase it. If you want to keep it, there's really three choices that you're going to follow down for a path of deploying this new operating system. And that's one is to just simply allow users to download and install it on their own via the App Store. No real work necessary for this option. The next thing you can do is you can pre-cache this file. And the way you do that is you essentially download the install file from the App Store and you upload it to the Casper Admin app. The Casper Admin app can extract out what it needs from that installer, and then you build a policy to say cache that installer on your Macs that you want to. So you could cache them on all of your Macs on your network. And you could make sure you trigger it at a low peak time so it doesn't kill your bandwidth. And then you can add a link to it in self-service. So when a user's ready to install, they simply click the link in self-service and it triggers it right away since it's been pre-cached on there. The other thing you can do is you can cache it and install it automatically for your users too. Note though, you'd have to throw up some sort of warning to them so that they know that their system's about to be upgraded, because the process can take anywhere from half an hour to an hour long. If you're wanting to erase your data and start over, maybe this you have a lab of Macs. Well, you can do kind of two different ways. You can image them over the network using Apple's NetBoot protocol, or you can image them locally using target mode imaging. Both are accomplished using the Casper imaging app that's part of the suite. And whether you decide to do it over the network or locally, it will essentially wipe your data because you're imaging the new machine. So now let's take a quick look at that blocking this update. If you decide, boy, we want to wait for El Cap and we want to install it later. In the Casper Suite, we've got a feature called Restricted Software Policy. And all you have to do is essentially define what process that you would like to have disabled. In this case, we're going to disable install OS X El Capitan.app. It's got to be exactly like that, because that's the process that actually runs the install file. And you can say, make sure that that process is restricted, and you can even choose to delete that install file since it takes up 5 gigs of space. Optionally, you can then send a message to the user. Something like, El Capitan is currently not supported. If you have any questions, contact IT. Really graceful way to let your users know that the new operating system isn't supported yet, but to have them reach out to you as well too. Now you can do this with any app you want. This is just an example here to disable specifically upgrading from Yosemite to, or any old operating system to El Capitan. So let's look at some next steps here moving forward. So let's say this is all really interesting to you and you really want to get started. How do you do so? Well, reach out to us online. We've got a lot of great folks that are on our live chat right now that would love to answer any specific questions that you have. We've got engineers that are just dying to give demos of this stuff to you, and we offer a free trial too. So if you're really interested in either if it's the device-based VPP stuff with iOS 9 or just managing your future Mac OS X upgrades, do reach out to us and we'd love to help you out with your specific solutions, your specific needs. On our website, we also have a lot more webinars. Check them out if you want to go deeper into things like DEP or just the basics of the Casper Suite. We've got some webinars for you. So with that, I want to thank everyone for their time here. It's been wonderful chatting with you about these new operating systems, and we hope we hear from you soon. Thank you.